This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, where passionate fans make powerful content. Check out theclashingconferences.com and join the squad today. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history forward September 10th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy hump day to everyone out there. We have a big show today. Good win for the Phils yesterday, 9-3. Harrison Bader with a home run. Kyle Schwarber hit number 50. Second Philly to ever do that behind Ryan Howard. He's on pace for 56, so there is, I guess, an outside shot that he will get close and at least sniff Ryan's 58. Ranger Suarez had a career high. Otto Kemp hit a home run on his birthday. It was Rangers was a career high in strikeouts, sorry. But he was just outstanding. Otto Kemp filling in for Alec Boehm. And all of a sudden, this magic number is 9 games. Phillies with a 9-game lead. They're 4 games up on the Dodgers, only 3.5 back of the Brewers. And I have to say, the way this team has been responding all year, whether it's Zach Wheeler, now Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, guys are just stepping up. That next man mentality, they're back to doing the water dump, it seems, after some games, which, hey, if it works, it works. But this team has showed me something, especially since Zach Wheeler went down, that these guys are stepping up. Aaron Nola stepped up when they needed a big start the other night. Ranger Suarez has been lights out since the Zach Wheeler news. Christopher Sanchez just kind of keeps on rolling. And I think everybody gives Rob Thompson a ton of crap for questionable moves, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, it is a long season. And he's been pulling the right moves since the trade deadline with the outfield platoon. And I think he has this team in a good spot and not questioning themselves or doubting themselves. And I truly do. As much as we get on Rob for this, I think he also deservedly deserves some of the credit for keeping this team focused and in the right mindset with all of the, I mean, it's devastating to lose your ace, especially with the type of injury he had. It's devastating to lose your MVP candidate leadoff shortstop. It's maybe not devastating, but it's still a big blow to lose Alec Boehm, especially when he had just come back from another injury. But Rob Thompson stays the course, keeps them focused. And I think we're going to give Rob Thompson a little bit of love today. I don't know where manager of the year voting, things like that, but I certainly think Rob might need to have some votes in the manager of the year. Again, making the right moves down the stretch here. And truthfully, in baseball, we talk about it all the time. We saw it last year with the Phillies with that hot start. Doesn't matter how you start, it's how you finish. And right now, the Phillies are playing some good baseball. They're back at it tonight. Christopher Sanchez on the mound as the Phillies look to take this series against the Mets, drop that magic number to 7, and then we can kind of turn our sights now on securing one of those buys. Because especially now with Trey Turner being out, I think one of those buys is crucial for the Phillies to get. But good win, 9-3 last night. They've taken 2 of 2. Let's make it 3 of 3. And hell, let's get greedy. But let's take care of some business tonight. Christopher Sanchez looks to just continue what has been a great season for him, but a great season so far for the Phils. And I will say, let's give Rob Thompson some of his props because he certainly deserves it here. But that does lead to yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, can the Phillies survive with a Kemp Sosa platoon? 78% of you said yes. And I mean, if Kemp's going to get hits like that and steal bases and Sosa's going to play the way he plays, I don't disagree. So good win for the Phils. Some Eagles news. Will Shipley has some fractured ribs. That makes the Tank Bigsby trade make a lot more sense now. Bigsby does figure to work into some of the return game as well. But the best news of the day yesterday, Jalen Carter will not be suspended, just fined essentially a game check. So that's huge. That's not including anything the Eagles might do. But I would think if the NFL doesn't seem like it's a suspendable offense, I don't think the Eagles will keep him out for a full game. They might set him a series, a quarter, something. But good news for the Eagles on that front. Vic Fangio spoke about Jalen Carter after he gave Aaron Nola his props. But he said that he was asked about him being a leader on the team, and he was like, I don't know. Actions speak louder than words, and you got to show it with your actions. And I agree 100%. And it goes back to what we said earlier this week, that the Eagles need to get somebody in there to kind of talk to this dude and get him to channel those emotions the right way. But good news for the Eagles on that front. It does appear that Adoree Jackson is going to get the start again. Fangio was like, as of right now, I don't think he's pleased, but it goes to kind of tell me that maybe Jacorian Bennett is not ready or isn't better than Adoree Jackson. But you get a better pass rush, I don't think it necessarily matters. We saw that in 2017 when the Eagles were getting after the quarterback. We saw that to a certain point in 2022. If you're getting after the quarterback, you can get away with not stellar cornerback play. So we'll see what happens this week. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are down some players, but don't forget to check out the Brotherly Birds breakdown, dropping at some point tomorrow evening. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont, so you're in the loop. Turn on your notifications so you know when it drops, but you will have it in time for Friday. Going to record it tonight, so depending on how things go, may give you a sneak peek tonight. But all depends on kids' sports and prepping for my son's birthday and all that other stuff. So stay tuned for the Brotherly Birds breakdown, which we're recording tonight. So at some point tomorrow, it will drop. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, and I probably should not mention this, only because this is what this dude is looking for. But I do think, and it is our 3-year anniversary here this week on this day in Philly sports history, so I think it was appropriate to bring it up because I kind of look at this as more of an alternative to some of the mainstream media. But Elliott Shore-Parks essentially said, if the Eagles lose to the Chiefs on Sunday, it would be an acceptable loss. And obviously caught backlash, obviously probably... Although, I don't know. Does he believe that? I could see that. I really could. But obviously did it to get clicks and people talking about it. And you know what? You win. Here I am talking about it. But I think it's the most idiotic, ridiculous, and just dumb, for lack of a better way to put it, take out there. You are a Super Bowl favorite. You are looking to go back to back. You're looking to go to your third Super Bowl in 4 years. There's no such thing as an acceptable loss. Do you think when the Patriots were doing their dynasty and Rex Ryan had the Jets playing well, do you think Bill Belichick was like, it's an acceptable loss? Do you think the Patriots fans were like, it's an acceptable loss? No. There's no such thing as an acceptable loss with a team with this high of expectations. If this was an up and coming team, okay, maybe I could see the logic and the rationale behind it. You could say, okay, hey, it's a measuring stick game. Let's see where we are. But not when you're the defending Super Bowl champions, not when you're trying to go back and win another one. There are no acceptable losses. You got Green Bay, who looked pretty good. You have Detroit, who I'm sure is going to bounce back. You have a team in your division with a young quarterback who, if he stays healthy, could give you fits. You have the Rams, who I think are only going to get better based on what we saw on Sunday. So No, there are no such things as acceptable losses because all of these games matter. This isn't baseball where it's a 162 game season. This is a 17 game sprint. So they all matter. So, Elliot, respectfully, you're an idiot. Like, there is no such thing as an acceptable loss. If this was 2001 Eagles, when Donovan, his first full year as a starter, or 2000 Eagles, I should say, first full year as a starter, yeah, you could say that was an acceptable loss. Even going to that 2001 team, that Rams game in the first game of the season at the vet we talked about yesterday, that's an acceptable loss for an up, young, and coming team. Not for a team that has Super Bowl expectations. And I think this, to me, and I'm going to give myself a plug here on the third year anniversary week, this is why people hate listening to sports talk radio. It's for dumb takes like this. And look, Elliot Shore-Parks could be a nice guy. I don't know. I never met him. But people hate you because of these idiotic takes. And the fact of the matter is, this is not an acceptable spot for the Eagles to lose. So, again, respectfully, you're an idiot. All right, don't forget to check out the Brotherly Birds breakdown dropping tomorrow. Kyle and I will break down the Chiefs-Eagles game, review the Cowboys game, go over our picks to see, because like I said, that sibling rivalry kicks in. I got to say, it's going to be a close one this week, so be sure to tune in for that. But that's my take on acceptable losses. There's no crying in baseball. There's no cry or acceptable losses for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2025. Hell out of here with that. All right, yesterday's trivia question. We spotlighted Brent Selleck as our underrated and underappreciated Philly athlete. He's number 5 on the Eagles' all-time reception list. I asked you who were the 4 ahead of him. That would be Harold Carmichael, Zach Ertz, Pete Retzlaff, and Brian Westbrook. So there you go. Kind of a surprising sort of top 5 there for the Eagles. But thank you to everybody who reached out to answer the trivia question. We'll have another one here later in the show. I do got to mention something with my Temple Owls. Yesterday at a press conference on a hot mic that I guess he thought was turned off, one of the Oklahoma reporters basically were ripping Philadelphia and Temple football, saying it's going to be like a high school game. They don't even sell out the whole stadium. There's going to be more Oklahoma fans there. Now, granted, there probably will be a decent amount of Oklahoma fans. But man, I don't know why, and maybe I'm wearing my cherry glasses right now, but this is shaping up to be a close game. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm basing this off of more of a feeling. If you want to base it off facts, the Temple defense has been good. Temple running game has been good. And that was the one thing that Michigan was able to do against Oklahoma last week, was run the ball. Again, could be my cherry and white colored glasses here, but I don't know, man. You give a guy like Casey Keeler some bulletin board material, he's going to have the Owls come out. So I'm not ready to officially go on record yet, but I may or may not be waiting to see where this line goes to take the Owls with the points. Just saying. All right, let's do some housekeeping. Follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, @PhillyJimbo. Continue to spread the word and subscribe, like, review, comment, all that other good stuff. It all helps out the algorithm. And then don't forget to check out the Brotherly Birds breakdown coming tomorrow as we look ahead and start gearing up for the Eagles-Chiefs game on Sunday. All right, September 10th. First, we're going to go back to 1965. And on this day in 1965, Phillies beat the Cardinals 5-4 in 10 innings. Cookie Rojas, my mom's favorite player, with a walk-off single in the 10th to give the Phils the win. Making his major league debut that day in relief of Robin Roberts was Ferguson Jenkins. He pitched 4 1/3 innings, gave up 4 hits, struck out 1, did not walk anybody, and he earned his first victory as a major league pitcher. And as a reward, the Phillies traded him that following April to the Cubs. And we'll get more into Ferguson later, but we'll go on to have a Hall of Fame career. But in 1965, Ferguson Jenkins gets his first win in relief of Robin Roberts as the Phillies beat the Cardinals 5-4 when Cookie Rojas knocked in the game-winning run in the 10th. Fast forward all the way to 1980, Phillies beat the Mets 5-0 at Shea Stadium. Bake McBride went 4 for 5. Gary Maddox went 3 for 4 with 2 RBI, and making his major league debut as a starting pitcher. He had a relief appearance before this. Starting that game for the Phils was rookie Marty Bystrom, who pitched a complete game, gave up 5 hits, struck out 5, walked 2, as the Phillies beat the Mets 5-0. And Marty was huge for that 1980 Phillies team down the stretch. Went 5-0 for them leading into the postseason. Started 2 games in the NLCS and the World Series for the Phillies. 2 no decisions with a 3.48 ERA. Started both Game 5 in the NLCS and Game 5 of the World Series, games in which the Phillies won. So Marty Bystrom made his first Major League start on this day and was huge for the Phillies down the stretch, going 5-0, making that push toward the NL East title. And then in 2017, Eagles opened up with a 30-17 win over Washington down in D.C., and it was the Carson Wentz show. He went through for 307 yards, 2 touchdowns, did have an interception and a fumble. Zach Ertz caught 8 balls for 93, and Nelson Aguilar had a great season for once. He wasn't dropping them like the meme guy, but had 6 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown. Defense was great against Kirk Cousins. 4 sacks, forced 4 turnovers as the Eagles open up the 2017 season with a 30-17 win en route to that Super Bowl 52 win. All right, in honor of Kyle Schwarber getting to 50 home runs yesterday, got a couple Phillies milestones for today. First, in 1985, Mike Schmidt hit a 3-run walk-off homer up in Montreal as the Phillies beat the Expos 5-2. It was the 10th and final walk-off home run of Schmidt's career. And then in 2009, Matt Stairs tied the Phillies record for pinch hit home runs with a grand slam against the Nationals. Unfortunately, the Phillies would lose that game 8-7. But Matt Stairs tying the pinch hit home run mark for the Phillies in 2009. That does lead to today's trivia question, though. Which Philly has the most pinch hits in a season? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line, 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off your chest, hit me up on the Discord, any of my social media. But which Philly has the most pinch hits in a season for the Phillies? Lots of great pinch hitters in Phillies history. Whether you're coaching Little League, crushing your fantasy league, or just rolling up to a bachelor party like a Philly legend, Lotwin Custom Hype Chains bring the energy. Fully customizable, totally unforgettable, and guaranteed to turn you into the MVP of the moment. Great for teams, groomsmen, or anyone who wants to show off with some serious swagger. Go to Lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD, and get 10% off your own custom hype chain. Lotwin, let's get hyped together. All right, it is Wednesday. That means it's time for What If Wednesday. And we are going to go back to one of my, I guess you could say, my roots. But first, What If Wednesday is brought to you, as always, by Lotwin. Get your 3D custom hype chains. Things are awesome. I told you about it yesterday. I got one for my son's birthday. Very quality material. Much better than those chimsy foam ones. And you're going to pay probably less money for a 3D custom one at Lotwin than you will for the foam ones down at Citizens Bank Park or the Link or the Pro Shops or Rally House or wherever. So trust me when I say, if you're looking for a 3D hype chain, it's fully customizable as well. You reach out. They have been great to work with. We went back and forth a few times on different ideas for my son. But go to Lotwin.com. Use that promo code TCCPOD to take 10% off of your order. And trust me, you won't be disappointed. All right, as I said, going back to the roots, this whole podcast started because I was in the middle of a writer's block for a book I was writing, which still remains on my hard drive, completely unfinished. But this gives me a more creative outlet than the book. But one of the biggest what ifs in Philly sports history is about Ferguson Jenkins. He was traded in April of 1966. He was a young pitcher. He was traded with Adolfo Phillips for Larry Jackson and Bob Bull. Yep. Ferguson went on to be a Hall of Famer, 284 wins, over 3,000 strikeouts, won the Cy Young Award in 1971. So the question today is, what if the Phillies didn't trade Ferguson Jenkins? And this was one I heard about all the time when I was a kid. The Phillies always screwed up. They had Ferguson Jenkins and they let him walk, blah, blah, blah. So I figured, why not take a look into this? And I guess in the late 60s, early 70s, kind of that after the 64 collapse and leading up to the Mike Schmidt, that era, things got kind of bleak for the Phillies. But you'd have Jim Bunning, Chris Short, and Ferguson Jenkins as your starters. It's not going to have a huge impact, but maybe they're able to develop some guys. Who knows? But they certainly should be more competitive than what they were. Then comes the 1972 season, and I think this is where you have a major diversion here because you have a choice. Do they end up pulling the trigger and making the trade for Steve Carlton? Do they even need to make that trade with Ferguson Jenkins? It's almost like a choose your own adventure book here. So let's say, yes, they do still make that trade. You, in a sense, have a righty-lefty combo of aces on your team. Likely helps the Phillies break through a lot sooner than they did. It took them till 1976. Maybe they break through a lot sooner. You have to think with that 1-2 combo, they win a pennant before the 1980 World Series. Maybe they win another World Series with Ferguson Jenkins and Steve Carlton, who were both at the top of their games. Maybe they win and go back in 1981. They don't lose to the Expos. Maybe it's near the end of their careers, but maybe 83 plays out differently. But I think you certainly got to think that whole 1980 Phillies run, the late 70s to early 80s run with the Phillies, gets accelerated a little bit with Ferguson Jenkins. All right, let's say we don't trade for Steve Carlton and you build around Rick Wise and Ferguson Jenkins. I don't think they'd be as dominant as they were with Steve Carlton, but I still think with that core of hitters, and you still have Ferguson Jenkins, who was one of the better pitchers in the game. Rick Wise was not, and we've talked a lot about the Wise-Carlton trade. Rick Wise never got back to where he was in 1971, but he was certainly a serviceable quality pitcher. So I still think you could win with that core, but it gets a little murkier with whether or not they would. I think if you have Carlton and Jenkins, they definitely win sooner. So there's that. But it certainly changes one way or the other. If they kept Ferguson Jenkins, whether it's positive or negative, it changes the whole legacy and trajectory of those Phillies teams in the 70s and 80s. But then you have the butterfly effect. Who knows? Because Steve Carlton really was that dominant in 1972 because the team was so bad. Maybe if the team wasn't so bad, he's not as dominant. So with what ifs, you always got to worry about the butterfly effect. But what are your thoughts? What if the Phillies would have kept Ferguson Jenkins? Would it have made a difference for the team? And then what would it have meant for the Steve Carlton era? Something worth thinking. But that is What If Wednesday, as always, brought to you by Lotwin. Get your 3D custom hype chains. Go to Lotwin.com. Use the promo code TCCPOD for 10% off of your order. And then finally today, our underrated and underappreciated Philly athlete is the Flying Hawaiian Shane Victorino. Shane was a Rule 5 draft pick of the Dodgers in December of 2004. Got called up to the Bigs in September of 2005. Got his big break in 2006 when the Phillies traded Bobby Abreu, who became the everyday right fielder. Started in center field in 2007 after... I'm sorry. Aaron Rome was... Either way. Started in center field in 2007 and became a fan favorite. Spent 8 years total in Philly, 279 hitter, 179 stolen bases, 181 doubles, won a couple gold gloves, and just really was a key part of why Jimmy Rollins had success because you had a guy like Shane Victorino hitting behind him. Obviously, we all know about the Grand Slam off of CC Sabathia in the NLDS in 2008. often forgotten and overshadowed because of Matt Stairs' home run was Shane Victorino hit a home run in that game to tie it. Game 4 of the NLCS against the Dodgers. But Shane Victorino, always a fan favorite, always with the aloha symbol, and one of my everlasting memories for as long as I have my memory will be after that 2008 World Series when Shane Victorino just came in and did the Superfly Snooker drop on top of the pile from center field after the Phillies won the World Series. But Shane Victorino, fan favorite, and today's underrated and underappreciated Philly athlete. Be sure to follow me on social media, all that other good stuff. Let me know your thoughts on Ferguson Jenkins and what would have happened if the Phillies trade him. On this day in 2009, Matt Stairs set the Phillies record tied the Phillies record for pinch hit home runs. Mike Schmidt hit his last walk-off homer of his career in 1985. Eagles opened up the season with a 30-17 win in Washington back in 2017. Marty Bystrom gets his first start as a Philly in 1980, and then Ferguson Jenkins, good old Fergie, made his major league debut and got his first win in relief of Robin Roberts on this day in 1965. Don't forget about the trivia question. Who has the most pinch hits in a season for the Phillies? We'll have more on the Eagles-Chiefs as we get closer to game day. Week 2 kicks off tomorrow, so looking forward to that. Let's go Phils. Let's take 3 of 4 and first 3 of the series anyway, and completely end any hope the Mets have, because they're still fighting right now for that final wild card spot. Let's as a Mortal Kombat, I think it was Mortal Kombat, when you do whatever the special move was at the end. I was never really into Mortal Kombat, but finish them. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for September 10th, 2025. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a hump day, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.